everybody, welcome to another segment of Accounting Imbalances How Do I series. In this segment, we get to talk about how do I reduce test anxiety, which is a different topic from what we normally get to discuss. Normally, we're doing journal entries, calculations, spreadsheets, etc. But this is another important topic that we have to deal with in the accounting or other financial professions. How do we deal with tests in school, and how do we deal with tests as we move into the profession and then have to get through our certifications? CPA exam, CMA exam, certifications for finance, CMA, CIA, CFE, etc. There's so many tests out there that we have to deal with in order to really succeed in our profession. And unfortunately, all of us at one point or another has walked into a test, sat down, and frozen up because we feel so anxious about the exam and its outcome. So today we just want to take a few minutes and discuss how can we reduce that pressure and successfully get through these tests. So let's start out with just the basics. Anxiety, of which test anxiety is one form, is simply distress or uneasiness caused by fear or danger of misfortune. That's from dictionary.com. In other words, it's the way our body reacts when we get scared of what's going to happen to us. And unfortunately, a lot of us feel that tests can have a really big impact on ourselves, our family, our friends, our reputation, etc. So we start to show the effects of anxiety as soon as we sit down at the exam. We start to sweat a little more profusely, hands, face, back of the neck, etc. We have trouble breathing. We have a lack of confidence. We start to question ourselves and our abilities. And then we may start to feel incompetent, which reduces our ability to dwell on tests. And perhaps the worst of all of these is feeling a lack of self-worth. The trouble with these symptoms is they tend to build on themselves. So we may start out with just a little bit of anxiety, but if something goes wrong on the test, or we start to feel like we're not getting the right answers, or something happens to distract us and take up some of our time, they just get worse and worse and worse. And the more anxious we get, the more our brain tends to shut down, and the harder time we have succeeding on the test. At this point, I'm probably preaching to the choir. You wouldn't be watching a video like this if you hadn't already experienced these feelings like I have many times in your life. So what do we do about it? What I'd like to do today is introduce a system that we can use to not only do well on the exam we're getting ready for in the next little while, but also to help us be successful on exams through the rest of our careers. So specifically, we're going to break this system into three pieces. The first is training. And training is teaching ourselves how to get ready for the test, both mentally and emotionally. Next is endurance. Now, normally when we think about endurance, we think about just kind of holding on and hoping we get through something. But that's not the definition that I want to use. The definition I want to use is a variation of one that we see on dictionary.com. It's the ability or strength to continue despite fatigue or stress. And that's what we're looking for as we try to get through tests, to get through the exam successfully with some techniques that we can use while we're actually in the seat working on the problems. And then finally, we need a sense of closure, which is walking away from the test successfully, shutting the door on it, leaving it behind so that we can focus on new projects and exams. Now, I could talk for hours about any of these three pieces and the suggestions that I've got for each one of them. I'm not going to do that. We're going to keep this short. But if we run into a piece that you'd like to see in more detail, please feel free to send me an email or leave a comment, and we can expand on any of these topics in future videos. Let's start, though, by talking about training. And the first thing we want to do to prepare successfully is find out as much as we can about the test. Now, in some cases, there's a lot published about the test. The professor has told us a lot of information. The CPA exam has published lots of old questions, and there are CPA exam companies that provide a lot of insight into what the test's like. Sometimes there's very little information. So we want to take what information we can get from the professor or the organization and then follow up. Talk with other people who've taken this test before. Go talk to the professor. Sit down in his or her office and ask them a couple questions, because even if they won't talk about content, most professors are willing to talk about study ideas, tips, and suggestions that will help you get ready for the test. Take advantage of that. Get the information that you need. Once you've found out as much as you can about the exam and what's expected, then you want to prepare effectively. If you give yourself the time to prepare for the test, then you won't have as much anxiety during the test. So keep in mind that verbally explaining concepts, trying problems with no notes are really great ways to cement ideas in your head and help you feel really confident about how well you know the material you're about to be tested on. Next, we want to make sure that we take care of ourselves. A lot of us get really nervous before a test and we don't sleep well. We study until the last possible minute. We don't eat very much because we're too nervous to even eat. We drink a lot of caffeine, etc. All of those things make it harder for our bodies to function effectively, and that comes out on the test. So, to the extent possible, get your preparation done a couple days early so you have at least one full day where you can walk away from your studying and relax. You feel confident because you've studied, so you can get a good night's sleep, eat a good solid breakfast, don't have a lot of caffeine, instead drink a lot of water. The last part of training is to arrive early. Nothing makes anxiety worse than having to rush into an exam and start with no time to breathe and relax. Or even worse, to miss 5, 10, 15 minutes of the test time. Now you're feeling even more rushed, and that just increases your anxiety levels. So what does that mean? Well, if it means you're coming to a test on campus, get there 5 or 10 minutes early. Time to use the restroom, time to get a drink, time to sit down carefully in your seat, get out your calculator and pencils, maybe read through the last couple notes, put everything away, and then breathe and just relax for a couple minutes before the test starts. If you're going to a testing center, especially one that you have to drive to, give yourself at least 30 minutes to arrive, find a parking space, take an elevator, etc. Even better, go a couple days before. Find where you'll park. Walk all the way to the registration desk and back so you know the route, you know how to get there. Then, on the day of the exam, still plan on being 15 or 20 minutes early, even if you've already tried it, so that, again, you have time to arrive, register, take a deep breath, and relax for a couple of minutes before the test starts. If you're taking an online exam, then you'll want to register for an account early. Get it done so that all of those details are taken care of and aren't weighing on you before the test starts. Then, on the day of the exam, start 15 minutes or so before you want to take your test. Make sure the room is all prepared. Go through the day of steps. Give yourself a chance to take a deep breath and then get started. The goal here is to leave yourself just a minute or two, if not more, to not think about the test, not think about traffic, not be worried about running into somebody in the hallway, but to sit in your seat and take a deep breath and get rid of all the stress of life before you turn your attention to the exam. And at this point, you know as much as you can about the test, you've practiced, you've studied, your body is feeling good because you've taken care of it, and you've pushed away all of the stress of life, and you're ready to get started. And that's how we start the process of reducing test anxiety. Now, we still have a couple of other steps that we want to talk about, but we'll do that in our next section. We'll see you then. Thanks.